Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, and anytime I'm testing a new grill, I often start with easy and work my way up to the hard stuff. But the hard stuff and the easy stuff can depend on the grill that you're doing. So if I was opening up just a normal grill, I might like to start with chicken or steak and eventually work my way to ribs and brisket. With the all-new Masterbuilt XT, we've reversed the order. So my first cooks were wood-fired ribs, followed by a wood-fired brisket. So I already know the Masterbuilt XT has some serious smoking credentials. But speaking of serious, the question that's on my mind as well as on yours, as I see it in the comments over and over and over again, is, James, can the all-new Masterbuilt XT do something like sear a steak? And as simple as that might sound, anytime you take our fuel and remove it from the cook chamber, put it off to the side like you get on a gravity fed smoker or an offset smoker, getting a steakhouse quality sear can be a bit more of a difficult task for grills like this. So to find out if the Masterbuilt XT can turn out that seriously good steak, let me fill you in on my game plan. So as you may be able to tell, I've already got some smoke rolling. That's because I am racing not only the daylight as well as the dinner deadline. So to do that, I just cleaned up from my previous cook by first shaking any remaining ash down into the collector bucket, dumped that out. I'm also going to take the opportunity now to add a wood split or two. Adding them into the ash collector has been a great way of adding supplemental smoke. I did this on my ribs as well as my brisket, and you'd be amazed how quickly these catch and burn up and impart some amazing smoke flavor that is coming out incredibly clean. Perhaps that's a charcoal filter where we've got the smoke going up through an actifier, getting that smoke in the right temperature range. I don't have enough time to sort of fully explain that, but if you're interested, I've got a digital download down below that explains a bit more of the science of smoke for a variety of cookers. It's mainly targeted for people following along with a Kamado style cooker, but that is a great resource if you're wondering a little bit more about wood humidity and what makes good smoke versus bad smoke. So nonetheless, back to our setup. I added a fire starter along with some fresh Fogo, started my fire and let that burn until I saw some smoke coming out the top of my hopper, closed everything down, opened up my air vent and set the grill to track along at 275 degrees. I've just opened it up and you can see we are at 306 degrees. So I'm still waiting for that firmware update that we've talked about a couple times in terms of any time that we open and close our cook chamber, there seems to be a bit of a habit in the algorithm to power about 20 minutes past where I want before it starts figuring things out and settling down. Once it does settle down, it's done a remarkable job, but there is that little nuance that I'm keeping an eye out on, and I'll let you know in a future video if that is something that gets resolved. It hasn't done anything detrimental yet to my ribs and my brisket, and I'm hoping it doesn't do anything to today's picanha steak. So speaking of picanha steak, I have an amazing looking picanha, and I'm gonna do a very basic, simple. I'm going almost for the Texas seasoning. So based off of some of the things in Barre Barbecue's menu, they use something like Fiesta Season It All along with fresh cracked black pepper. So I just used my pepper cannon, ground up 4 tablespoons of fresh cracked black pepper, and like always on a steak, I love using something like a truff hot sauce. This is not something that you're going to taste a hot sauce, but I'm after here the truffle part of the truffle hot sauce, so the umami that I'm going to get from a truffle binder. If you can find another hot sauce with truffle in it that's not absolutely nuclear like ghost pepper or Carolina Reaper, you can taste those if we go for extreme heat. But if you can find something with truffle oil, it's an amazing way of adding some great depth of flavor. So I use that as my binder, scored my fat cap just to again let some of the seasonings come down, and I love how that renders and presents once we're all said and done. I installed a meter probe from my Meter Pro Duo, and we are ready to get cooking. So the game plan for now is just to ride along at that 275 degrees, or eventually we'll get to that 275 degrees. We're down to 302. And then once the meter lets me know that we've reached our internal temperature, I set an alarm a little bit lower than what I want, but 115 degrees Fahrenheit. That'll give us an opportunity to come check on our steak and start bumping up that temperature to find out if the XT actually has what it takes for an amazing sear. So according to the meter, our steak is just about to come off and rest, but this is the algorithm letting us know that this is what it thinks the carryover cooking will be, and I generally find that's pretty accurate. But we are not at 115 degrees Fahrenheit, we're at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is the perfect opportunity. I've just come out and turned the dial all the way up to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So the wait time between our reverse sear and our sear will be a little bit less. I timed this the other day, and going from cold to 700 degrees was just shy of 35 minutes. I don't think it'll take that long since we already have a fire going and heat inside of our cook chamber, but just in case, I don't want the steaks to cool off too much. What I do want is to actually see in the meter chart the temperature dropping, as that lets me know that I'm going to be able to withstand a little bit of extra time in the sear without worrying about overcooking our steak. We're going for a medium rare, which is our family's favorite internal doneness. So I'll rejoin you after we had that steak off, let it rest 10-15 minutes or so while the XT gravity fed is coming up to its maximum sear capacity. We'll find out together if it's got a sear up its sleeve. Okay, moment of truth. Now I know from our previous test with my biscuits as well as the infrared camera that the hottest spot in my Masterbuilt XT is right along the left-hand side. So that's where I'm gonna place this beautiful looking picanha for our sear. Two minutes up, let's flip. Close that back up. Okay, let's get it off and let it rest. All right, ready to check it out. Now I will say, just looking at the camera, it looks worse for you on camera using a smartphone. That's what I use. I've got the best light. I'm trying to give you some good light, but it is borderline burnt by the time I was able to try and get some sort of Maillard reaction. This is in part due to the heavy pepper base that we went with for our seasoning. Maybe not the best sear that I've ever achieved, but also not the worst. Let's see how it tastes. So taking a look at a cross section, I do have a little bit of a gradient going on where we go from well done to medium rare. That can be a function of not being able to cook directly over the coals. If I'm able to go inferno mode on a fire pit or on a Kamado directly over the coals, we're able to get our sear in a much less time and get less of a gradient. But all in all, that doesn't look too bad. Let's dive in, see how it tastes. Well, the cook on our picanha looks spot on. The sear, I'm not so sure about just yet, but let's see how it tastes. Cheers. So there is a bit of there's a war between good and evil going on in my mouth. So on the inside of steak, actually, I'm gonna make this a little bit easier for myself just to confirm exactly what I'm tasting. I'm gonna remove the crust, taste the inside. Steak part is fantastic. I mentioned just placing the wood in the firebox. We have a subtle, and by subtle, I mean you almost can't tell it's there, hint of smoke. I don't love heavily smoked steaks, but I like them more than anyone else in my family. The smoke is right on the money. Where we get to the best of times and worst of times, come back to our crust here. So I don't quite know how to explain this, but it tastes like flare-ups. It doesn't taste flame-kissed. There's a difference in flame-kissed. If I'm cooking directly over charcoal on my Kamado or my solo stove, or I've even done that inside my offset firebox, there's a difference between flame-kissed when we're sitting directly over wood versus grease flare-ups once they hit the tray and they're incinerated. They didn't happen when we were looking on the camera, but I got a couple alerts on my meter saying there were flare-ups, and I saw sort of a puff of smoke. So I know there were a few moments of flare-ups, and I've definitely seen that in other XT videos where the only flames that we're getting is if we have a fatty enough steak where the fat is falling down and being incinerated on the hot metal in the drip tray down below versus actually any wood flavor. Not gonna lie, it doesn't taste amazing, but I actually think I can fix that. I've been holding out a secret on you guys. I was worried that that might be the case, so I actually cooked the twin picanha roast that came in my Costco pack at the same time, since I think I have a way of redeeming the sear. Let me show you what I got in mind. So, as I was saying, no flames live right here where we're cooking, but you know what? Plenty of flames live right here. Drop on one of our cooking grids. Let's try this again. So I hope that's coming through on camera, but the difference in smell alone is night and day. Hopefully, tastes as good as it smells. Let's get a couple slices. Once again, really great cook on this picanha, but we've got what you want to see, actual char, a bit of a Maillard reaction versus burning from sitting too long. And the smell-o-vision senses are going overload here. This smells like wood fire. Let's dive in. Let me get a couple sample pieces here and see if it tastes half as good as it smells. Okay, take two. So these two picanha roasts were cooked the same way at the same time. The sear is the only thing that we want to judge the difference between the two. Let's go in for a sample bite. I should chew. I don't even need 1 second. Wow. So in my mind, I was expecting a little bit more. Is it obvious? This is getting like slapped in the face. This is a tortilla challenge, but with steak. This is absolutely amazing. In fact, I'm hesitating. I don't even want to go back and taste this. So I'm going to just paint a word picture, maybe so you can try and appreciate what I'm tasting to understand the difference. This smells like whatever's fallen to the bottom of your grill that is caught on fire. It's kind of putrid, it's acidic. So even if we were getting some flames, I'm gonna say these are not good flames. And the sear, I'm not particularly happy with either, just based on the amount of time that I needed to get any sort of reaction, which is starting to overdo the outside and burn, particularly when I go heavy on pepper like I did today. Pepper goes up to crust and then kind of crosses over when it's over direct heat for too long and it gets burnt and doesn't taste very good. All those problems go away when we are able to take advantage of our charcoal hopper in full inferno mode and cook directly over the coals, just like I would do in a Kamado style grill. I've done on my offset in the firebox or even over the solo stove. And I loved all of those steaks if you go back. And I'm gonna put this one right up there with it. So conventional? Absolutely not. Recommended? I'm not so sure. I'm gonna have to double check when this cools off. I didn't see any electronics or any risk with doing that. We just have our hopper down into the charcoal bed and then the drip pan and everything down below. And I'm gonna leave that at 700 degrees while I was finishing recording this, just to burn off any food residue or anything like that I wouldn't normally want in my hopper. But I think it works absolutely fantastic. And on food flavor alone, I cannot stress how different this fire tastes from that fire. Night and day. Well, we opened this video with the question on our minds, can the Masterbuilt XT sear? And I'm gonna give this a B+. Definitely better than some of the struggles I've had on pellet grills, depending on the manufacturer. Some can reach 700 plus degrees, others struggle to get much over 300 degrees, depending on their baffles and the design and the accessibility of the firebox. So for the most part, the stock searing capabilities in 700 degrees for things like pizza or high heat baking, definitely better than that. But in the world that I'm accustomed to with real wood fires and cooking directly over the coal, there's a long way to go to get an upgrade from a B+ grade. An A+ grade though, sitting right beside me and taking advantage of the fire that we have directly in our charcoal hopper. And this, color me impressed, that's an A+ steak right there. Absolutely lights out. Fantastic. Well, I hope that answered your question. It definitely answered mine. If the Masterbuilt XT can sear a steak, we have to deviate a little bit out of the playbook in order to pull it off. But if I'm being honest, this is true on a variety of other grills. If I was cooking on a Kamado, I might have to remove heat deflectors. If I was cooking in an offset, I might need to cook directly in the firebox. And if you're using something like a pellet grill, I know some like the Yoder YS640 have a removable baffle. All of these require technically a little workaround, which is the same thing that we had to do today in order to get access to our fire. And once we had all the indirect baffles and everything out of the way and we were just playing with fire, we were rewarded with an absolutely amazing picanha. That is it for today. I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue signing off. Remember, don't be afraid to fire it up. Oh yeah.